Now let's go a step further and demonstrate some parsing of string data from the console. This time we're going to go to File, New Project, Visual C#, Console Application, and we're going to call this one Simple Addition. And this time, when we write our code, I would like to get two numbers from the user, convert them to integers, and then display the sum of those two numbers. So the first thing I'm going to do is ask the user to enter the first number. And let's not forget our semicolon. Even the pros do it sometimes. Next, I'm going to need a place to put that variable. And the user is going to enter from the keyboard, which comes in as a string. So let's create a string variable, and let's call it user input. And we'll set this equal to console.readLine. So that will retrieve the first number from the user. Now, if I add strings together, it's going to concatenate, and that's not what I want. So I need to convert user input to an integer. So let's create a variable called number1, and we're going to set this equal to the result of int parse user input. Next, let's ask the user for their second number. So console write, enter the second number. And now we're going to reassign the value of user input to the next thing they type into the console. Then we're going to say int number2 equals the result of int parse user input. Lastly, I want to print out the sum of the two numbers. Now I'm going to show you there's two ways to do this. I could say int sum is equal to number1 plus number2. And then I could say console.writeLine, the sum is plus the sum. Now, the first thing people usually ask is, hey, wait a minute. That's a string, and you're adding an integer to it. But this is something that's special about console.writeLine. I've already showed you in the slide deck how to turn a number into a different number using casting. But we can also turn a number into a string by calling a method called toString. Console.writeLine, because it prints strings out to the console, will automatically call toString on anything that's passed in. So I'm going to write another line here. The sum is, and I'm going to put plus sum.toString. These two lines are functionally equivalent. So you don't have to put the toString. If you'd like to explicitly do it, you can. The final thing I'm going to show you is I'm going to put one more console write line in here. The sum is, and I'm going to say plus, and I'm going to put a parenthesis here, just like in your basic algebra, parentheses do order of operations. And I'm going to say number1 plus number2. What will happen this time is it will print out to the console the sum is, and then it will see the parentheses, and it will evaluate what is in the parentheses first. So it will add number1 to number2, and then take the result, convert it to a string, and put it in console write line. This is called expression chaining. And I just want to demonstrate to you that it doesn't matter if we pass in a variable or the result of an expression. C# in both cases will figure out what the value is, whether it's just a value stored in the variable or whether it needs to do some calculations first, and then take that result and pass it to the console write line method. So let's put in our console read line so that our application doesn't close on us. And now let's hit play and run this. So let's enter the first number, 5. Let's enter the second number, 10. And you'll see that our 3 console write line statements all printed out the correct sum. And I showed you 3 different ways of doing it. Now, I mentioned before that int.parse will throw an exception if the value cannot be converted to an integer. So let's run this program one more time. And now for the first number, let's type banana and see what happens. The program stops and Visual Studio puts up an error message for you, and it says that an unhandled exception of type system.formatException occurred. Additional information: the input string was not in a correct format. And it shows the line where the error occurred, and that's the parse statement. Obviously, we cannot turn the string banana into a number. It doesn't know how to do that. So the format exception is the error that .NET gave back to you. And we can break or continue. We're going to choose break and hit the stop button to stop our program because there's no reason to go on.